Maryn, it's so nice to be in this space with you. I'm so happy that Ron set this up. It's kind of the embodiment of the way that we've been conversing this whole time because Ron relays things to me that you've said. So now this is just more of what I've already experienced, except now I get to hear it. Um,
I love it.
so
Thank you so much for having me.
yeah. On our informal space here that we're inviting people into.
Yeah, and I just want to say before we get rolling, Maryn's here. Maryn is the executive director of the Lorian Association. And I have known Maryn since way back. I used to visit the Spangler household, and Maryn would be there, and she was a good deal younger than she is now, but she has stepped into this new role of executive director with resounding transformational qualities. So, Maryn, I just really glad that you've accepted our opportunity to come here and be with us on this chat and conversation.
Yeah, thank you so much for introducing me that way, because sometimes I need to be reminded about these amazing transformative qualities that I bring. So I appreciate it.
And I gotta say, not to put you on the spot, but I'm like, oh, that's where, for me, that's where we have to start. Um, like, what does that mean to you? What does this title and this new role that you're stepping into, how do you see that? What is your introduction to yourself of what's going on here and what the transitions within Lorian and this shift and this transformation, how do you feel about that? What's going on?
Great question. Well, so I think a little bit of context first, just in case this does end up going public. So I grew up with the Lorian Association. This is a nonprofit, a work that my parents have been doing for 50 years. Um, and I grew up with the work. I grew up with this wonderful community of people that were holding this organization and engaging with the classes and the materials and the workshops, usually inside of my own house. Or I would be taken along as a young child to workshops elsewhere, and I would sneak in and listen at doorways and things like that. So I've always felt very connected to this organization and to this work. I never had any thoughts in my mind about taking it over one day or stepping in any sort of leadership capacity. That just was not on my agenda for my life. And so my life, as life often does, things come up and our paths shift, and we end up somewhere that, while we might not have expected it, it feels right and it feels good. So, all that to say, in coming in and stepping in as executive director, there's simultaneously a feeling of rightness, of everything having led up to this point in my life and kind of looking back and going, oh, that's why I had those experiences. That's why I went down those pathways, those rabbit holes. They've all kind of led me here with exactly the skills and the outlook and the perspective that I needed to meet this particular moment for the organization and with the organization. You know, the organization has been around for 50 years. Everybody that has been holding it are in their 70s and sometimes 80s. And they're reaching the point where, and have been reaching the point where they need to figure out a transition strategy. So, me coming in is the transition strategy.
Mhm.
It very much is, um, handing things over to the next generation. um, it's interesting because what I feel about my role is there's a particular way that Lorian has presented for 50 years
Mhm.
that made so much sense for the world that it was meeting at those times. Just with the speed of change in the world, it reaches a point where it no longer is responsive to the speed of change. It's no longer presenting information in a way that reaches a new audience. We have an incredible, passionate fan base or participant base, global, but they're all people who have been engaged for a long time. Um, so a lot of how I see my role has been to kind of support the process of transplanting into a bigger container, or like shaking out the roots a little bit to make space, to find places of calcification and just kind of bring some life and bring some flow. I think that I am uniquely positioned to do that because I am a daughter. I am a daughter of the founder, the founders, and I have the privilege of both knowing where we have come from and not holding so much reverence that it stops me from where we're going. I'm able to see the benefit of what we've done so far without feeling handcuffed to it. I feel full permission to make the changes needed to keep Lorian relevant and serving its mission statement and its mission purpose for another 50 years. So that's what I see my role as. It's not necessarily because, because I am anyone special stepping into this role, but I am very uniquely qualified to be able to be a little bit irreverent and have that be okay.
It's
And to
funny
bring
because
change.
that's exactly what I was thinking about when Ron, you were describing this 15-year-old, and when you were just describing your life alongside your parents doing their job. I mean, as a disclaimer, that's probably not even necessary. There is no implication of disrespect or irreverence in the sense of there not being reverence. But also, I mean, we all know kids, like, sometimes there's like a funny little eye roll or like, oh, they're doing that. There's like a levity that children just bring because of their perspective on their parents and on their parents as other people other than who they are, and this is this organization is very integrated and all the things. Still, they're your parents. Like sometimes they're just mom and dad. And so I that totally was conveyed, and it did make me even more curious. Like, but you are uniquely positioned. And that feels very apparent in what you just described and what's taking place and what's needed.
Yeah, I think that is a really foundational piece for how I view my own role. I am not attached to being executive director for any length of time. I do think that it is needed. Like I'm the right person for this time. I hold that with so much space of, all right, let's look 40 years down the road. Am I still doing this? Am I still the appropriate person for that position? Um, and I am fully open to there coming along someone else who is more appropriate. I think that what the skills that I bring are very specifically transition skills and
Which is
transformation
really
skills.
cool just to think about how that manifests into the work that Lorian does, which has always been somewhat transformational, but even more so, like, what does that mean? and how does that play out are really interesting questions that I think everybody's asking with some curiosity of like, what's going to happen now?
Me too.
Um, yeah, and that's like the spirit of it. And also, I mean, just this morning I was listening to a podcast, and I don't even remember what the context was, but it was saying like the best leaders are the ones that don't seek the position of leadership, like it finds them. And so I think that's beautiful and incredibly appropriate, just for,
You know, Mindy, one of the things that strikes
classically
me,
that that's the case
yeah,
with
as
leaders.
being, I'm sorry, as being part of the older generation, when I first met you, even back when you were coming to these various workshops and so on at our house, you made a statement which I found really useful, and that is that you saw yourself as a generation who could take on the kind of let's say the the outer manifestation of organization to enable those of us who really are older now and feel it. It's like I feel it in my 70s. So, but taking that on gives both a younger generation, whatever they are, the opportunity to develop new skills and capacities that meets the time. But it also gives us, older generations, a way of letting go and finding these new opportunities for what our life holds for us. And that has really been important for me because there really is. I remember I think I was like a sophomore or something in college reading Siddhartha or one of these books. It may have not been that one, about the wisdom that comes with age. And of course, at 19 or 20, wisdom has an entirely different characteristic than at 70. But there's a letting go of form that's really important.
And standing in between these two ages from this perspective, I mean, I totally I'm starting to develop the steepedness of an of a more established person on the planet, whatever you want to call it, but of like, I get that little chuckle of like wisdom of 20s, ha ha ha. But I also have two kids and I have dedicated my parenting to the idea that they do have there is a ton of innate wisdom in youth, especially now, especially whatever the souls are that are coming in now that have chosen to be young in these moments. There is a wisdom in youth and there is a wisdom of perspective, and I'm sort of standing at the fulcrum of those two ends of the seesaw, and I can see it. For me, as I stand here in a point of transition in my own life, and I'm sort of assessing, okay, what stays, what goes, what don't I have a choice about whether it's going to stay or go. um, it is really just clear to me in my life's path. A lot of my best friends have been from Ron's age. Um, growing up, and then my profession for the past 20 plus years was taking care of a building that just happened to have like the people all bought in at the same time. They were all of that generation. So for 20 years professionally, I worked with that age group. And now, even more, with coming into Lorian and seeing all these people who are, most of them are senior, um, and they've become my dear friends. And I do see myself as someone who sort of, I wouldn't say take on as much as bridge gap. I picture my hands reaching out and holding on to this generation that I love and that has done a lot to just sort of break trail. And my kids' generation and younger, who are these creatures and what are they already coming in with? What understandings do they just have? They're not even that there's that wisdom is like software that's already been downloaded. Um, and I do really feel like the older generation, like they did a lot of trailblazing and groundbreaking and structure building and creating a foundation that we could put something else onto, build something else onto. And a huge drive in me and a huge thought that I have about this is what happens when we allow them to like when we create a situation that's safe enough for them to let go. Like, we got this, it's going to be okay, so that they can keep doing what they do. Like, what happens when they relax, when they're not building that structure so much, when they're not dedicated to an organization, when they get to relax a little bit, there's another level of wisdom that feels written in to the experience. That's like, it's not just purely altruistic that I'm doing this. I'm like, I want to see what happens when that that generation of people gets to let go of the day-to-day, the work that they've done, and they kind of get to go off again, still breaking trail, um, into what's next. What is that? It feels so much more liminal and deeply important to me.
Mhm.
Um, I feel like there's an innate wisdom in the generation ahead of us that has some things inherent in it that aren't as inherent in me and are even less inherent in my kids that are important. Just general, so some of the structure was too much structure, but some of the structures super important, like just general human decency, general ways to build social structures that actually do work, and levels of respect and decency that I think are inherent in your generation, Ron, that kind of started to get eroded in mine and seem completely somewhat dissolved, at least, or transformed in generations even younger. Yes, it's all going to be different, and who knows what we're preparing for. No, but none of us can know, and I think that's really good. But there are qualities that I want to bring with us over that gap into the next. And your generation, Ron, holds some of those qualities that I think are super important, and holds like life lessons that may not be the same framework, but the underlying energy of what you did and how you did it, and the courage and the energy and the like that I want to bring with us into this new place. And I feel like it's important
Yeah.
to transfer that.
Well, I just wanted to mention, Maryn, you're right. You get to live with it. You're at this
Mhm.
moment, you're living with your mother and father, who are the one, primary founders of Lorian. So I think it's an interest because I do get to attend meetings and I see how what Mindy's saying, that there is a generational, that we're carrying something, but you're actually living it in the same household.
Mm.
And it strikes me, as I've been in conversations and various presentations, how you're actually watching those of us who are older, in the form of your parents, go through those alterations and those adjustments. And yet you're bringing in this new, and we can recognize that new and kind of like say yes to it. You know, K-pop Demon Hunters is new music. It's not going back to Woodstock.
Right.
But it really is, it brings in aliveness of its time. And so it's for me, it's watching the aliveness that's coming forth that gives me an opportunity to step back. So
Mhm.
I'm just curious what your perspective is on being in the same household.
I think it's been interesting. So I was kind of forced back into the household again against my will, in that I was a massage therapist. I suffered a rotator cuff injury and spent well, it was a career-ending injury. I spent a long time trying to rehab, but in the process of that, I lived out the end of my lease in my apartment, and then I was like, well, I don't have a job currently. I need to come back home while I recover.
So you're one of the boomerang kids.
Oh, totally. Um, but it was very fascinating because in coming back, there was this sense of, okay, like coming back to heal this, and then I'm going to be leaving again. Um, and several months, pretty much as soon as I was healed, my dad started having health issues. And then it didn't make sense for me to go. And there was like this energetic support that I could provide for my mom, for my sister who also lives with us, for my dad. There was almost this feeling of being tied, like physically tied, not just in the house, but to the couch right next to his chair. It was like, oh, I have to be within 3 feet of him at all times. Um, and so it's been 3 years of, okay, I came back home, and then immediately my parents started having their own health things that started happening that kept me here. And in the process of that, there's been this layer that I've been aware of that shows up sometimes, in our interactions, but it's been like a transition of the mantle that's been happening over that period of time, where when I first came, it was very much held by my parents. The organization was, the spirit of the organization was, and if I look at it now, it has absolutely transferred to me. Um, like in that process, it's been this just 3 year gradual download of information from them of like, all right, what is the heart of what we're doing? We, are living together and also coworkers. And that has been so much fun. That's been a really big joy because my parents, they are much older than me. My dad is 50 years older than me. My mom is 43 years older than me. And yet they've always been my best friends. Like, of all the people in the world, I am closest to them. There's just this, this ease between us where it feels like there's a soul deep connection and just so much love there. I love my siblings, but my parents truly are the people that I'm closest to in the whole world. So it's been this really interesting experience um, of like verbal conversations all the time, also held within this like field transfer. And I would be aware of myself, almost like tuning myself to what they were holding. And it's been really noticeable in the past year. Um, Last summer, my mom, around the exact same time that I took on the mantle of ED, executive director, um, within a week, my mom had really intense health stuff and spent a whole summer in the hospital. So I tell this story a lot, but I was learning the banking from a hospital room while my mom was on painkillers and opioids. I'm asking her what the passwords are while she is totally loopy. Like that's the kind of transfer that we were working with. And it's been very interesting just feeling the difference. where 3 years ago I would ask them a question about Lorian, and they would say something that really brought me on target. I'd be like, yes. And that has really shifted at this point where now, I might ask them a question. I might say, what do you feel about this? And it's like everybody in the room knows that the answer that they give isn't going to be necessarily the right one. They are supporting me as a daughter rather than as holders of the field at this point. And it's been just very interesting to feel the energetic shift of that, the shift of the field. And I think also there's grief there. There's the grief of having to step into the position of the responsibility, and to still, ask for feedback and all of that, but it's a different relationship of asking for feedback. I'm not asking and then, they're giving exactly the perfect answer. They're giving an answer. And then it's my job to attune to whether that is the appropriate response or the appropriate action to take. I forget what the question was.
That's really
You
cool.
know,
Um,
can you explain that just a little bit more, that tuning in? Because I think that's this core of allowing myself, for instance, to let go, is knowing the tuning in is taking place.
Oh yeah.
The mantle has been assumed, and I don't have to hold it anymore.
Yeah. I think that's been a really important piece for me, it just in how I have approached this whole thing. I want to be so trustworthy in it that people know that it's okay to take the hands off the wheel. Like I want, this is my internal goal. I want to be so on point and do such a good job that that the founders feel both like the trust to take that step and trust that things will work out. Um, yeah, and just also I want us to succeed. But so I tune in regularly. I always say, um, if there's one thing that I have 100% confidence in my ability to do, it's to tune into what the right direction to take is. I might not have the right words to express it, but I know what it feels like. I know, you know, I know what it smells like, I say. I know what the right direction to go is, based off of just this energetic sense of what feels like opening and what feels like closing or like unsustainable or just something off. And I think it's important not to rush too quickly when there's that feeling of rightness. Um, and there's also just kind of a flow with it where sometimes I can feel like, okay, this idea, this project that's coming up, something is off about it. And let's just slow it all down and like really consider what steps we're taking. And then within usually a few weeks, something comes up that we're able to articulate in terms of, oh, I don't actually think that this is a fit or this is a good move. And then we're able to kind of clarify what the parts of the project are that feel right and what parts aren't. Um, I don't know if that is helpful, but
and
Go
Ron,
ahead.
is that
Well, no, I think it is very helpful. Maryn, you and I have had a lot of interactions on various things, and both those sense of you carrying the mantle has been very clear to me. But also, you've been very clear with, why don't we rethink these little bit, or why don't we give it some more time?
yes,
And I think that's valuable because it does create perspective.
yes.
So, yeah.
and before we go too much further, I'm interested in another part of what you had said before about the grief.
Mm.
What is that?
Um, I think all change has some level of grief, even if they're really positive changes. Um, and just as like really negative changes can sometimes have a thread of joy in them at the same time. So it's always change is always a mixed bag. I think in this case, because my work is so tied up with family, and with aging and just the realities of aging. I mean, why is the mantle shifting? It's because people are getting older. It's because people are experiencing changes in their body that mean that holding the weight of the field is detrimental, is like physically too much to handle. So a lot of the grief is just kind of tangled up in that of the reason why I am assuming this mantle is because someone that I deeply love, people that I deeply love, are reaching the point in their life where that's not something that they're able to hold in the same way. Um, Ron, I think that you were saying earlier, I think both of you were saying earlier, there's a stepping back and a letting go, but it's not, that's not the end of the story. Letting go is never the end of the story. It's a process that leads to something else. And I try and really hold that in perspective. I am happy to assume the weight of responsibility so that the people that I love can engage in the organization and engage in the mission in a way that actually feels good to them and actually feels creative and not like a burden or a weight. But yeah, within that, there's just the awareness that, oh, all of these changes are taking place um, because something that has been a stability point for me my whole life is entering the question mark era. Let's put it that way. uh,
And that seems fundamental to the understanding of this shift. Like, I think a lot of people in Lorian could say that to some extent, that this has been a point of stability for them for 50 years or, 30 years or whatever. But I mean, no one can say that more than you. This was not only where you went for classes or to participate on a board or whatever, but this was your home. This is your parents. This is your family. So,
there's a lot of
that
enmeshment.
feels like a huge part of the mantle and an important piece.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. Sometimes over this past just 3 years of engaging this process, um, there have been moments of feeling it was like my very presence meant things to people that I had no control over. And for a group of people, it meant really positive things that maybe were too positive. Maybe it was putting too much trust in me. And for another group of people, it was really challenging. It was really impactful because the mere like bringing in of me, the mere engagement of the topic of transition and making these changes required people to really kind of come face to face with the fact that you can love a thing for 50 years, for your whole life, and change comes.
Mhm.
And oh, what other places in my life is that happening? In my own body, what is happening? So yeah, a lot of my a lot of my work has been how to get the work done while also holding kind of compassionate space for people to have their feelings of whatever is happening and not take it personally.
And that feels like such an important part of what's coming or what is part of Lorian's expansion of like, yes, there are these spiritual realms that we can reach to, but part of what Lorian's always been about is like, okay, now What about what's right here? And there's nothing more right here than the things that you're talking about, like aging, bodies,
Yeah.
things that do stop working the way that they've worked before. Like that's part of, to quote your dad, like the peanut butter of spirituality.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
then to bring that tenderness around it back into it is really, really interesting. Really,
Yeah. Yeah. Um, I think that's a piece that's really important to me. Um, in my own practice, in my own approach to spirituality, um, there's so many difficult feelings that we have that are just such a natural part of being human. Um, I really value like the pain, for lack of a better term, like the painful parts of life. There's almost this kind of there's like this ecstaticness to the intimacy of being alive
mhm,
that is bittersweet.
absolutely.
It is so joyful and so painful, and often at the same time. And that is the definition of ecstasy. Ecstasy is the coexistence of joy and sorrow in the same moment, in my view. Um, and that's just so much of what I feel with being a human and what the value is of really coming into a body and coming into incarnation. Wow, you get to feel so much. And holy moly, you meet your edges and it hurts. And incarnation is full of sharp edges. And what do you do when you run into something unexpectedly and have to open to it, have to love it, have to meet it, and just kind of experience that multi-dimensional livingness. Um,
So important and so much to me a part of what is coming in these generations that I see. I mean, my daughter does that. It's just part of who she is. And it's like it that's part of who she is. She got this questionnaire, like a basic emotional well-being questionnaire where you check a box. I have these thoughts, I find it difficult to, whatever. And my daughter answered honestly, like, yeah, I have these thoughts every day. And, I saw the pediatrician walk in and be like, okay, there's a suicide hotline. And, she like started in with like, do you need help immediately? And at some point, I'm like, this is part of who she is. She has these feelings and she gets up every day and does what she has to do. And like, this is my daughter. There's a full spectrum here. And I felt the doctor kind of ease up a little bit, like, okay.
yeah.
Um, and also she's holding that intensity. And it is something that I think in former generations would be like, holy moly, we need to, this is
Yeah.
um and I wrote like and I said to the doctor, like at this point, if anyone who's checking zero on every box is like something's wrong with that, like please, you need to rewrite this. Like if you're not holding some modicum of concern for like what's happening here, then I think you might have a problem. There would be
Yes.
something. So what I see is, that part of the spectrum, this 0 to 5, is half the spectrum. There's a whole other half that people are coming in with now that forms a much bigger radius, a
Yeah.
much bigger spectrum than I think what was considered normal or socially functional before. Um, and I feel like you represent that to some extent.
Because I think that people are literally wired to to notice the intensity in a way that previous generations weren't. Like, I do think that there's just kind of a shift in our physiology that is happening, and also a shift. This gets into a whole other topic. But it's like the way that subtle energies work are shifting. I have noticed that so much in my own life. Just I can point to the difference even just 5 years ago versus now. Um, the level of sensitivity that I have now versus 5 years ago is noticeable. And it's twofold. It's one, it's my own energy body has changed, and also something about the nature of how boundaries work in the world is more malleable. It's
Totally.
like there's a malleability there in the nature of existence that wasn't there even 5, 10 years ago. Um, and I think that's something that the next generation is, they don't know what it was previously. They don't have the 50 years of living with the world one way and then experiencing like a foundational change in the nature of how energy works while you're still alive. Like that's something that we are experiencing together. And I just think I find that fascinating. And I often have conversations with people close in with me going like, oh, okay, I thought this thing and then it happened. And that, like, what do I do now to work with the malleability of the world rather than like accidentally stumble into something that I didn't mean to because I'm expecting the boundaries to be what they were 5 years ago.
I think
Um,
that, by the way, is a really good point. You had that expectation, and we're being asked to change almost on a daily, if not weekly or monthly basis.
totally.
What's
And
that
there's
like? Yeah, I'm curious what that's like for you, Maryn, because I'm finding the same thing, and it's hard. Um,
Yeah, I think it happens because so much of it is happening without conscious direction or conscious thought. It is noticeable in hindsight. And so then that makes me look for the ways that it's happening in the moment and, maybe projecting into the future of like, all right, if this trend continues, what are the implications? And it's interesting because at Lorian, we talk about something we call the guy in human, and I have opinions about it because I am so not about having a noun like guy and human to like describe what this is, but also because when
thank
people
you, by
hear
the
that,
way.
yeah, I'm like, no, no, no. This is an evolution that is taking place as we speak, and you don't have to do anything about it. Like it's not like how can I bring about the emergence of this new way of being? It's like, oh no, the new way of being is here now. We're experiencing it on the fly. How can you recognize that it's happening in your life? How can you um, change what you're doing in response to that? Like, what are the new rules that we're living in as our energy body changes and as the world around us changes? Not just the visible changes of like government and structures like that, environment, climate change, but the actual like foundational nature that we engage with. So a lot of that for me is I am 10 times more sensitive than I was 5 years ago. There are things that I loved 5 years ago that I cannot handle anymore. I just had to get rid of all of my paintings. I had to feng shui my bedroom. I have never done this before. And it was not because I wanted to, it was because I became so sensitive to the energy in there and to how unbalanced it felt. And I spent a week lying in my bed, feeling like I was about to be blown off of my bed, feeling like there was this push of energy from above, like back behind my bed frame. And like I was just in this firestorm of energy where I was gripping the bed all night, unable to sleep, just trying to stay physically here. Um, all of that went away when I moved my bed 6 inches to the left. And then it wasn't in line with the door. Like there were just 6 inches, but it was the 6 inches where I slept that was, feet facing the doorway. I just moved it over a little bit and the entire energy of the space changed. Um, I was never that sensitive before. I'm still a little bit, I have feelings about being that sensitive. I feel a little bit ashamed because I feel like I should have thicker skin and I should be able to tough it out and that this isn't something that should affect me. Um, and yeah, I'm just kind of having to let go of those thoughts of what it should look like and realize, oh, sensitivity is here, a whole new level of sensitivity that I need to learn the rules for.
That's a good way of putting it. I just want to follow up on that with a moment because yeah, I think about, well, I should have the energy to do this, this, and this. And I had this experience where I kept going. I started something, I kept going, and then I felt like I was having heart problems like a little bit later. And I talked to this friend of mine who I talked about, who's a body, works a lot with the body. She said, why didn't you eat lunch? Well, I wanted to finish the project. She said, you were hungry. Your body was telling you that you were hungry. You're not dying, you're hungry. So
Yeah.
what you're saying is really that our bodies are tuning in and we have to update we have to update our software.
Yeah. And also because it's not just us updating our software, it's like everything is becoming more noticeably energetic. Um, in that experience of me on my bed, like having to get up at 3 a.m. I got up at 3 a.m. to take pictures off of the wall because they were too loud. And I couldn't sleep with these pictures in my bedroom. Like that, if I said that that was what was going on 5 years ago, I would feel a little bit crazy. Now I'm like, oh, that was such a visceral reaction that
Hmm.
actually helped me sleep when I took them out of the bedroom. Like there was a noticeable shift. Um, it's like the environment is more communicative to me, and I think to all of us, than it used to be. It's just like there's a tuning that's happening where I think primary language really is becoming much more energetic. I think it's always been energetic, but it's becoming so much more conscious, and I think our environments are communicating louder.
And that's so important because with that sensitivity, we will no longer be able to do some of the things that we have done to the environment, to other people. Like that will feel so untenable that we won't be able to do it. Whereas in the past, we have. Like we've cut down the forest, yeah, I say we as like a
Yeah.
killed the people. We've made decisions about other people's lives that as if they were not our own. With that sensitivity comes this better world, this Gaian human world that we've been talking about. Like you need that sensitivity because somehow the sensitivity was dulled enough that we cut down the rainforest. We killed the animals. We did these things. We polluted the thing. We allowed this to happen. I'm not saying that in a way that we should be that's punitive. I'm just saying a higher sensitivity automatically helps us adjust those things.
Yeah, it's like I think we went through a period of time evolutionarily where it was really necessary for us to have these thicker boundaries. Like that served
Yeah.
purpose.
Absolutely. We wouldn't have been able to survive what we've survived
Yeah.
coming through without that.
Yeah, but it's like everything has consequences, and having stronger boundaries where you can't hear other, um, you're more likely to do damage and just not even realize it. So now, hopefully, in coming into this next stage, this is how I'm approaching it anyway. It's like, oh, I have an embodied knowledge of what it is to be an individual. Now, what is it to come into ecology, like intercommunication, while maintaining my sense of self, while maintaining my sovereignty, my individual choicefulness, but now I'm in communication and relationship to much more than I thought was possible. And that is also just constant information. So finding the balance.
And as I think your dad has spoken of this, like this permeability, there's a permeability now that is is what we've all wanted, I
Oh,
think.
yeah. Certainly in our communities.
Yeah. And it's here, like it's happening. And that
Yeah.
can also be stressful.
Yeah, it is.
There are three little things that I wanted to add as the conversation was taking place. Um, One of them is Maryn, you describe this mantle that you're taking on and you're doing it beautifully. And I, for one, and probably not for one, believe, it's you're being supported in all the ways that need to happen. And also, like, as someone who has just sort of started stepping out of a life where I took on a lot of things, I'll do that. And I had this enormous capacity to do them. Um, I will say that the guidance I'm receiving and that what I felt compelled just to say as this midpoint generational person is, you know, um, build a team. Somehow
I
build a
hear you.
team. I think for that's part of what I'm getting about what's next is we do things together and like there is no top of the thing and we work in community now and I know you know all this and it's not meant to be preachy but it's also like oh be careful like that can like
I
expand to
that
a
is
point.
that's my internal monologue all the time. It's like, Maryn, are you taking on too much? Where should you be, asking for help? Where should you be asking for support? That is I came from a self-care field. I fully believe that work should not consume everything. And that um and that I know that I work better in a small team. I work better with teammates than as a solo person. That just isn't how my brain works. So
And so I
I
believe that I
yeah.
almost feel ridiculous saying it but I also was like oh just
I
careful
always
that's
appreciate the reminder.
a
Yes.
lot. And the other two things were just quotes from other spiritual places that just felt relevant to the conversation that are quick. One was a doctor and a mechanic are talking, and the mechanic goes to the doctor and says, I think it's a surgeon, and says, I work on things too, and I rebuild whole systems and the whole deal. And like, I make $100 an hour and you make 1,000. Like, what gives? And the surgeon turns and says, yeah, well, I do it while the car's running. And I feel like that there's a lot of information, spiritual growth information in that of like, we're making these adaptations while the car's running. Like, there's still all the things, we're still in the world, and there's shifts taking place, and it's all got to be, the car's still running.
Yep.
And so I use that analogy. I've used that analogy in the past. And the other one is a description of what's happening that I love, which is, we're all dancing on this dance floor, like picture a waltz. I picture a waltz or something, some older form of dancing. And the message is the music has actually stopped, but you're still dancing. And slowly people are realizing that the music has stopped or the music has changed and it's time for a different dance. But for a while there, you just keep dancing even though the music has already stopped or changed. And I feel like that's what's happening right now. Like whatever it was that we were doing, the music to it is not there anymore. And we're only just starting to realize that and either stop and try to listen to what's next or changing the dance steps or whatever. And for me, that's a beautiful analogy that helps me understand what's taking place.
I love that. And I love all music analogies because they're very accurate to it. You
Totally.
know, very
That's been a
accurate to the
theme for
experience.
today, actually. There's been a lot of that. I've had a few meetings and those things have come up.
Hmm. Well, thank you both so much for having me today. And I
That
hope
was
it's not the last
wonderful.
time.
Yeah, I do too.
Oh,
I
no,
definitely feel that way.
yeah. Yes, thank you, Maryn, for coming, and we will be having the podcast put up on the natural the Guy in World's website, but also we're going to have it in YouTube. So we hope that it'll get out. Really do appreciate, and Mindy, I think this is a great time to wrap. Okay, thank you all.
Thank you. Really grateful for that. Thank you.